This is the Ramandi Empire. In a deserted alleyway, wanted posters for the thief who stole the imperial treasure plastered the walls, a common sight throughout the city. It's me. The bounty mentioned above is the highest ever offered. If caught, my fate is sealed. Execution. A woman likened to a wicked witch, more terrifying than a demon, said to possess the most formidable power in the world. Yes, I'm currently inside the novel Lionheart Flower, and it seems I'm the villain of that story. Considered a villain for her attempted assassination of Prince Lynette, this character is a rare breed of antagonist, Countess Adina. The royal family in this novel harbors a generations-old secret, the royal heart forged from magic. That magic holds the power to obliterate entire cities. Such terrifying power is deemed too dangerous for the younger members of the royal family. The heart is removed until the boys come of age and kept in absolute secrecy, a place unknown to anyone. But 2 years ago, a wicked woman, the character I've been transmigrated into, stole the prince's heart and sold it to another nation, earning Countess Adina a substantial fortune. Exposed as the thief, she too faces certain death. That's how the novel ends. And that's why I'm currently striving to steal that heart without getting caught. But as Countess Adina sneaks around beneath the castle, attempting her escape, she's startled, jumping back only to come face to face with the male protagonist. This is the third time Adina has found the male protagonist lying face down on the ground. She approaches, poking his head, wondering if he's still alive. If he keeps collapsing in the middle of the road, how can he be the protagonist? It's like this every time. But this time, I can't just ignore him. After all, he's in this state partly because I stole his heart. Perhaps I'm the only one here who can. Fortunately, the male protagonist also has highly toxic substances in his blood. Contact with it could be life-threatening. 1, 2, 3. Mask on, gloves on, medicine prepared. She quickly sets to work. Suddenly, she hesitates, thinking, do I really need to save him? He's the protagonist, after all. Even if something happens, he won't die, I think. But if he actually dies, things will become incredibly complicated. If he dies now, I'll be the prime suspect in a royal assassination. With that thought, Adina shakes her head, telling herself this absolutely cannot happen. Nervously, she shakes the protagonist. Hey, are you alright? She quickly rolls him over. A pool of blood stains the ground beside him. Adina's hands move swiftly. How'd he get injured? I need to stop the bleeding immediately. I'll help him just like the last few times, ensure he's safe, and if I escape before he wakes up, the mission is a success. While working, a flicker of appreciation for the man's beauty catches her off guard. Oh my, is this man too beautiful? Pure platinum blonde hair, like an angel descended from the heavens. A delicate face, eyes closed tight. A strong and well-built physique with clearly defined abdominal muscles. Adina turns away, wiping a trace of drool from her lip, silently scolding herself. What am I even thinking? Regaining her composure, she tells herself she'll just unbutton his shirt first. See, I'm trying to save you. You should take note of this. Just then, her arm is suddenly grabbed. Adina jumps, startled. What was that? The protagonist looks at her, his voice a low murmur. Indeed, I wasn't mistaken. After all, how could she do all this for me? Why are you saving me, Countess Adina? Adina freezes, unsure if she's been discovered. She averts her gaze awkwardly, replying, You seem to have mistaken me for someone else. The protagonist quickly grabs her hand, asking, Where do you think you're going? Adina swits, stammering, She clutches her basket tightly. Then, with a sudden burst of strength, she swung at her captor, forcing him to release his grip. He stared at her, a flicker of surprise in his eyes before. He crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Adina placed her bag on the ground, a glittering stone nestled within. She glanced again at the noble prince, blood trickling from a wound on his head. Pulling down her mask, she muttered, Damn it, I'm done for. Just then, a voice startled her. Countess, are you planning another murder? Adina whirled around, her heart pounding. It was Edward, her aide. Flustered, Adina offered a hasty explanation. He just fainted. See? He looks all right, doesn't he? Edward thought to himself, is the blood dripping from his forehead fake? Is that why she says he's all right? Exasperated, Adina pulled the stone from her pocket. Who told you to put this stone in my pocket? Edward replied innocently. Well, I thought you said you needed a simple self-defense tool. Adina shot him a glare. Stop standing there spouting nonsense and help me. If we're caught, we're both in trouble. After managing to get the unconscious prince into the carriage, Adina sat back, contemplating her next move. Why did I have to bring him here? I wonder if anyone saw us. No, probably not. Calm down. We've already brought him this far, so after he gets better, we could just say we found him by chance and saved him. A smug smile played on her lips. Let's hurry, she ordered. Just then, a persistent knocking echoed from outside the carriage. Edina quickly grabbed her skirt. It wouldn't be enough to conceal him completely, but she had no other choice. With a sigh of resignation, she moved closer to the prince, draping her skirt over him. The carriage curtain was abruptly yanked open, revealing a man standing outside. Edina glared at him. It's been a while since we last met, hasn't it? The man began to apologize for his intrusion. But it seems this is our first encounter since the National Assembly, correct? Edina instantly recognized him as Viscount Quentin. He was the protagonist's uncle in the novel, a man who had suffered abuse since childhood. The thought made her grip tighten on her fan. So, Countess Dina, the rare villainess who has captured the protagonist and encountered the most dangerous man at night. Viscount Quentin leveled a sharp look at her, a mixture of anger and astonishment in his eyes. What in the world is she doing? He wondered. Edina offered a disarming smile. And why are you opening my carriage door so carelessly? She asked. Your audacity is astounding, blocking my carriage like this. The Viscount must have something to discuss with me to call me out like this, correct? Despite his anger, Quentin lowered his head. My apologies. I was truly rude. I'm currently searching for someone urgently. I distinctly saw the person run in this direction. I was wondering if the Countess had seen anyone. Edina replied smoothly, I haven't seen anyone. At her words, Quentin's gaze fell suspiciously on a fluttering piece of her skirt. Edina's voice turned icy. Viscount Quentin, were you looking? Quentin averted his gaze, lowering his head again. Forgive me. My recent behavior has been quite improper. The person I'm looking for is a young man, quite handsome, with platinum blonde hair. Have you seen such a person, my lady? Edina replied coldly. I've already told you, I haven't seen anyone. But the person with platinum blonde hair that the Viscount is looking for, Prince Lionheart, has actually just... Viscount! Quentin stared at her, weariness etched on his face. Edina let out a mocking laugh. Oh my, why so surprised? Or is it because I hit a nerve that you're making such a face? Quentin frowned. This jest is preposterous. Edina retorted sharply. Please, it was just a joke to lighten the mood. You seem so tense, Viscount. I felt quite sorry seeing you so frantic. And, seeing your reaction, it's almost as if we're speaking the truth. Quentin asked impatiently, what do you mean by that? Edina laughed derisively. Come now, so it's all over now, is it? I told you before, I haven't seen anyone like the one you described pass through here. I don't have time for such nonsense with you. You know I'm a very busy person, so I'll be taking my leave now. With that, she drew the curtains closed and slammed the door shut with a bang. Then she grinned at Quentin, who was practically fuming with barely contained rage. But there was nothing he could do. Having dealt with him, she was finally able to lean back in her chair and breathe a sigh of relief. Lifting her skirts, she saw that Lionheart was still unconscious. There was still no sign of relaxation on that handsome face. Quentin searched high and low, but unable to find Lionheart. His frustration turned his face an ashen gray. After a while, Lionheart finally came to, looking around in confusion. He soon saw a lady dozing by the bedside, breathtakingly beautiful even in sleep. Lionheart was startled, wondering why He recalled the first time he saw the Countess. He felt as if he could barely breathe. Her beauty was like a mystical black rose, as if untouchable. Her dignified demeanor and haughty attitude, not just her appearance, but her entire being radiated a striking beauty. The malicious rumors about her seemed to be nothing but lies. Until Edina smiled at him and said, I hope your highness dies quickly and cleanly. Only when she uttered those words did Lionheart realize he had been completely mistaken. With that thought, he cautiously asked, Why are you here? Edina, startled, replied, Your highness has awakened. You've been unconscious for quite some time. Lionheart said in a low voice, I'll ask again. Why are you here? Edina shrugged and replied, Because this is my residence. Lionheart looked awkward. Ah, well, then why are we here? No, why are we? I mean, why you and I? Edina interrupted him, saying that the wound had already healed and she just needed to bandage it slightly. Indeed, being a royal had its perks. Magic is truly amazing. Lionheart asked, bewildered, Did you bandage me? Edina nodded. Yes, as you can clearly see. Lionheart rubbed his head and asked, Why didn't you just leave me alone? Every time you want to assassinate me, I don't understand why you become so compassionate and save me. Edina froze, thinking how could he be so handsome even when he was angry. Lionheart continued, someone took care of me before when I collapsed on the road. Was that you? Edina quietly answered, yes, it was me. But outwardly, she concealed it, saying no, that's not it at all. Lionheart wondered suspiciously if she had eaten something wrong. What was her purpose in saving him in the end? Was she crazy? Just then, Edina suddenly stood up. She coldly asked Lionheart, are you investigating me now? You should remember that I saved your life. Lionheart lowered his voice slightly and asked, then why did you save me? You should be most happy when I die. Edina silently cried, yes, that's the reason. Because the person who would be most happy to see you die is Countess Edina, not me. So if I let you die, I'd be the prime suspect and would be executed. With that thought, she smiled ingratiatingly. After all, I saved your highness's life, so let's just consider what happened last time a misunderstanding. Lionheart was still very suspicious, wondering if she had taken some kind of love potion or something. Edina murmured, yes, I thought so too, but why should I bear all the sins of Countess Edina? She smiled confidently. Consider it my way of making amends. So I would be honored if you would stay a little longer before you leave, your highness. She thought that doing this should be fine for the countess. Such an act was quite polite. It seemed something wasn't quite right. Just as she thought this, she heard Lionheart agree. All right, thank you for saving me, the lady thought, looking into eyes that seemed to reflect his own inner resolve. The male lead in this novel is righteous and kind. His gaze is perfect for staring down villains. I'm truly not cut out to be a villain, after all. A while later, she stood pensively by the window. It seemed he really did detest her, leaving after less than half a day. Seeing as Viscount Quentin had to chase after him, he must have already left the royal palace. Thinking this, Edina turned to ask her aide, how is the task I gave you progressing? Edward immediately reported, according to the information I just received, I've dispatched several people to follow His Highness, but a slight problem has arisen. Edina turned and asked, what is it? Edward replied, we received news that someone sent assassins to target the prince at the odd assassination gathering. Edina's face turned pale with anger, and she cursed under her breath. Honestly, why is everyone fixated on the protagonist? She thought if she stopped bothering him, he would eventually calm down. Viscount Quentin is a sadistic pervert, but if it wasn't him, then who could it be? Edward continued, but the problem is a black-haired girl wearing a mask came and asked. I saw a red camellia pattern on her chest. Edina glanced down. Anyone who saw it would assume it was actually them. Someone is definitely scheming. Someone wants me assassinated. Edina quickly asked, where's Prince Lionheart? Edward hesitated. After he left, I don't know where he went. Perhaps those assassins have already finished him off. Edina's eyes widened in surprise, and she immediately ran off. No, absolutely not. If he dies, my life will be forfeit too. Before Edward could react, he asked where she was going. Edina quickly turned her head and replied, to find the assassins. Edward asked again, wait, are you really planning to save His Highness? Edina smiled faintly. No, that's not my concern. Those assassins, starting today, I will crush them all, even if I don't want to. If I want to be a true countess, I have to use this ploy. Thinking this, she waved her hand and said, men, let's go. A while later, at the assassination organization Order's headquarters, Edina charged in, leading a group of men. They quickly gained control of the building, shouting and taking over. In less than a few minutes, a young girl was pushed in front of Edina. Edina clasped her hands together and greeted her. It's a pleasure to meet you, Oda. This girl was the leader of the assassination organization Order, renowned for her talent and formidable abilities. Oda defended herself. I was just following orders. There's nothing wrong with accepting an assassination request, is there? Edina appeared indifferent. Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. But what I mean is, who assigned you the task of assassinating a member of the royal family? Oda lowered her head. I really don't know who. Edina pressed. Was it Viscount Quentin? Oda was caught in a dilemma. This was confidential. She couldn't speak. Edina stood up and slowly walked towards her, then whispered, it seems you've made a grave mistake. I'm not the magnanimous type who lets people off the hook easily. Conspiring for murder within the royal family isn't some petty crime that can be dealt with later. Then, Edina turned away. The terrified Oda clung to her leg, pleading. The girl shrieked, help, please. Edward quickly pulled her away. Edina coldly asked. So, tell me, who put you up to this? Oda still hesitated. Edina gave her 2 seconds, then turned to leave, frightening Oda into revealing the truth. It was Viscount Quentin. He's the one who told me to do it. Edina hesitated, turning back, thinking, was it really his idea? What drove him a plan so far ahead as to attempt to assassinate Lionheart? On top of that, they even hired someone to impersonate me, she thought, gesturing to Edward. Edward immediately understood her meaning. He threw a pen and paper onto the ground. Then tell Oda to sign here and write down everything you just said on that piece of paper. A while later, the sky had shifted into twilight hues. Edina breathed a sigh of relief. Oh my God, I was so scared. I felt like I was going to die. At some point, Lionheart appeared on the other side, arms crossed. I'm really curious what you're up to this time, he said. You seem quite pleased with yourself today. Slightly flustered as she prepared dinner, Edina quickly regained her composure. What? You scared me, she exclaimed, then swiftly covered her mouth. Startled by her own tone, she quickly cooled, glancing at him and asking, what are you doing here? Lionheart, noticing the shift in her demeanor, eyed her suspiciously, but a flicker of appreciation for her beauty crossed his face. Oh my, stunning. Lionheart finished, stepping closer. You had someone follow me, didn't you? He asked, suspicion lacing his voice. Edina turned away, silently cursing her subordinate. Can't you do your job properly? She muttered to herself. Quickly concocting an excuse, she said, I don't like Viscount Quentin. I thought I might be able to uncover some of his weaknesses, so I had someone follow his highness. Lionheart looked at her skeptically. Do you think I'll believe that? Edina challenged him back. And what if you don't? Lionheart was momentarily speechless, unsure how to respond. Seizing the opportunity, Lionheart pressed on. Now, isn't the enemy of my enemy my ally? Edward murmured to his master. But we are not his ally yet, my lady. Edina, attempting to appear nonchalant, smiled and asked Lionheart. So, your highness, what brings you here? Lionheart lowered his voice. We were ambushed. I've been tracking the attackers, and it seems they might be from the Order. Edina was slightly surprised by this news. An attack? Was it really that intense? Even the most skilled members of the Order wouldn't be able to lay a finger on Lionheart, she thought. Teasingly, she said, Your Highness, it seems you're always under attack every time I see you. Inwardly, she mused, if that's the case, protecting him is the best course of action. But wait, is this idea really sound? They say the most dangerous place is often the safest. I wonder if he suspects it was he who stole my heart. The truth is, no one knows anything other than that the Countess is truly dead. Why didn't I think of this before? With this thought, a thrill of excitement coursed through Edina. Immediately, she proposed, Your Highness, would you be willing to stay at my residence for a while? Lionheart froze, staring at her. Edina smiled confidently. I will protect your highness. Lionheart was taken aback by the sudden offer. After a few seconds, he averted his gaze, then asked again, What exactly are you thinking? Edina, perceptive as ever, noted, Why does he look so anxious? Turning back to him, she replied, Just as your highness thinks. Rather, I hope this kind of thing won't happen again. Next time, she thought, it's too bad I can't do anything. Let's go, Edward. Before leaving, Edward cast a hostile glance at the man behind them. Lionheart stood silently, watching the two depart. Countess Edina had amassed a considerable fortune in a short period, having sold Lionheart's heart. Furthermore, this might also be due to her control of the Onyx army and possessing an intelligence network within a certain house. Peter wiped the sweat from his brow. Oh, you've arrived, he said. He was the head and operator of the Isaac organization. Edina, dressed in an exquisitely elegant and beautiful gown, appeared before him. Taking a seat, she declared, I'm here today to discuss the establishment of the Edina Bank. Peter, his face etched with confusion, asked, What is the Edina Bank? Edina replied, The Isaac Bank you operate handles currency exchange and manages funds, doesn't it? How about establishing another bank called Dina, merging the two into one, and then having Dina Bank also managed by you? Peter beamed. Countess Edina was, as expected, refreshingly direct when it came to money. Edina gestured to the aide behind her. 2 sheets of paper were placed on the table. Edina said with a smile, This is the contract. Let's not beat around the bush. Take a good look at it. Upon receiving the command, Peter picked up the contract. His face paled as he read through it, his expression betraying a sudden shock. He stammered, What does this mean? We're loans? What is this? Edina offered a thin smile. The southern part of the West Continent has been at war for 5 years now. A small country like the Alat Kingdom is obviously facing financial difficulties. We will provide financial support to the Alat Kingdom during the war, and then monopolize the financial sector from the southern part of the continent. She thought to herself, Countess Dina truly has sold her heart to the Belody Kingdom. Even if I ask them to return the heart, they will, of course, refuse. This will help the Alat Kingdom win the war against the Belody Kingdom. If the Alat Kingdom wins this war, then I will ask them to return Lionheart's heart in exchange for the loan. That's my plan. Of course, establishing another bank like this will also bring in quite a bit of money. Hearing these words, Peter exclaimed excitedly, That's brilliant! Edina felt a surge of confidence, certain of her success because she knew the future. Even if the novel's plot had deviated, she trusted her path. With Countess Dina's intelligence network, there was bound to be a backup plan. She continued, While negotiating with the Alat Kingdom, it's necessary to secure and establish a foundation in La Madinat. Peter eagerly replied, If it's the Chamber of Commerce, leave it to me. Edina looked at him and smiled faintly. Of course, she chuckled. If not you, then who else? Then let's go now. She thought, perfect. If we maintain this composure and walk out coolly, it'll be flawless. Arrogant, chic, and alluring. The very essence of a wickedly charming villainess. Peter immediately jumped to his feet and glanced at the subordinates behind him. They lined up respectfully and bowed. Take care, Countess. Edina screamed internally. No, I'm not some mafia boss. That doesn't suit me. Oh, this is so embarrassing. An indeterminate amount of time passed, and the moon outside gradually climbed higher. In a quiet alleyway, Edina, cloaked and hooded, slipped discreetly into a house. The two subordinates behind her continuously scanned their surroundings with caution. Edina, too, stepped aside to observe, and soon saw the door gradually creak open. A stranger in a robe stepped out of the house. Edina lowered her hood and asked, Where is it? The cloaked man handed her a stone. This is this month's. Edina nodded. All right, then. She handed him the money. The man deftly took the money, bowed, and left. Edina had just purchased a magic stone, a gem possessing a fraction of the Emperor's heart's power. Of course, 1 or 2 such stones wouldn't amount to much, but if she gathered enough, she could create an artificial heart. Edina silently calculated. Eventually, little by little, she would amass enough. If there's an artificial heart, it might be able to neutralize the poison flowing in Lionheart's blood. In the novel, the heroine, Clyde, came up with this idea for the ailing male lead. So I decided to pursue this as a plan B, to ensure I have a way to survive. She wiped away a tear, a bitter gesture. On the day she's exposed as the heart thief, she'll have to use this to beg for her life. The transaction complete, she and her 2 subordinates turned to leave. Suddenly, Edina noticed something, a commotion across the street. She hesitated, unsure if a fight had broken out. Edina tried to peer through the crowd on the other side. That looks a little familiar. Edward, looking dubious, said, That person, he really resembles Prince Lionheart. Edina instantly recognized Lionheart. Panic seized her. She wanted to flee. I'd hoped this wouldn't happen again, she thought, but here he is. The clash of steel rang out again and again as the crowd surged forward, eager to bring him down. Edina's men rushed in to support their mistress, while Lionheart fought back with a fierce determination. He and his men quickly overwhelmed their opponents. Edward, standing to the side, watched in astonishment. The knight escorting Edward was completely taken aback. But Lionheart, I heard he was renowned throughout the Empire. Indeed, Edward breathed. It's like watching a martial arts film, isn't it? Edward, still slightly shaken, asked, Excuse me, are you all right? Lionheart chuckled and waved a dismissive hand. Oh, just a minor scuffle. Another name crossed off the list. Lionheart wiped his mouth, a swift, almost elegant gesture. He looked incredibly dashing. Edina, breathing a sigh of relief, thought, I was so worried, given the poison in his blood, but it seems he's unharmed. Lost in thought, she caught Lionheart's disapproving gaze fixed upon her. She offered a faint smile. Greetings. Oh, isn't that Prince Lionheart? Lionheart stared blankly at the woman who played innocent before him. His voice was cold. Were those assassins sent by the Countess? The accusation stung. Damn it, she retorted. If I were behind it, what would be the point of sending an escort? Prince Lionheart sat silently, his expression unreadable. Edina glanced at the down figures. Oda wasn't the mastermind, was he? She asked, a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. Edward spoke up. No, the Countess didn't dismantle their organization last time. If it were a group from the capital, no one would dare interfere with an assassination attempt on Prince Lionheart. Edina looked up. Prince Lionheart, she inquired. Do you have any idea who those assassins were? I suspect your uncle, the 6th Viscount Quentin. Wouldn't he be the only one audacious enough? Lionheart's voice was low. I have an idea who is responsible, but we are still investigating and observing. So, we can't draw any conclusions yet. Is the Countess truly unconnected to my great-uncle? Edina froze, her mind racing. Countess Edina has been plotting to kill Lionheart. But if it wasn't her, then who? Steeling herself, she answered firmly, no, not at all. I can't apologize for everything in the past, but at least now I can tell your highness that I no longer wish to be involved in any of this. From your highness, Edina thought, no, how many times have I written off Lionheart's heart? How can I not care? Just then, Lionheart asked why she had followed and helped him. Edina attempted to explain. It was just a coincidence. Lionheart's tone was skeptical. Don't say it was a coincidence. That word doesn't suit you. Edina muttered under her breath. So stubborn. I appreciate your concern, but did the heavens accidentally mix something up when creating you? Why are you so suspicious? Edina then stepped closer to Lionheart. Your Highness, you'll have to guess the answer. I have some business to attend to, so I must take my leave. Watching her depart with her 2 guards, Lionheart called out, still bewildered. Hey, he was puzzled. Why should I have to guess? The next morning, in Edina's castle, Edward sat diligently working in the study. His hand flew across the parchment as Edina, seated opposite him, cast quick glances in his direction. Edward Dustin, my talented secretary. Edward hails from a declining noble family, the Dustin lineage renowned for generations of service as royal tutors. Though their influence has waned, Edward's father remains the dean of the Royal Academy. She seemed somewhat distracted, assessing her subordinate. Watching his profile, the focused intensity of his work, Edina found herself reaching out a hand. Edward suddenly grabbed her hand. Edina, flustered, explained that she'd only been concerned because the man's hair was disheveled and she was suspicious about his reaction. Edward, realizing he'd overreacted, forced a laugh and thanked her. A slight awkwardness hung between them, and neither spoke further on the matter. Just then, a knock echoed from the door. Countess, I have a letter for you. Edina nodded. Enter. Her gaze sharpened as she took the proffered letter. Recognizing the seal, she murmured, it's from my family. Edward clarified, not from the Godemy family, but from... He trailed off as Edina silently read the contents. A small, humorless laugh escaped her lips. It seems my fiancé wishes to break off our engagement. Edward was taken aback. Gray, betrothed to the Countess? The vice-commander of the Royal Knights, Lynette's second-in-command, and heir to a marquisate. Gray, who possessed everything from looks and ability to social standing, was known for his fickle heart. In other words, it was a predictable betrayal. Hearing her dismissive tone, Edward asked with concern, what will you do? Edina, seemingly unfazed, simply prepared the necessary paperwork for the dissolution of the engagement, then tore the letter to shreds. Tossing the remnants into a nearby wastebasket, she said coldly, if it's trash, I don't mind disposing of it. Under the cloak of a dark night, in a city of extravagant splendor, the streets lay deserted. A lone figure lay sprawled on the cobblestones. A jaded voice broke the silence. This is the 6th time. It was Edina. She glared down at the prone form of the young man named Lynette. Why was the protagonist, Lynette, always ending up like this, lying in the middle of the road? Lynette lay there, blood matting his hair. Edina, by now accustomed to this bizarre occurrence, efficiently rummaged in her bag and quickly donned a pair of gloves, covering her mouth. Ever the pragmatist, with practiced movements, she dabbed at the blood on Lynette's forehead. Lynette's condition seemed dire. Edward, standing beside her, couldn't help but express his confusion. Why are we wearing these? Edina, without missing a beat, explained to Edward, this is the 6th time we've come across Prince Lynette like this, so just in case, we wear these. It seems we're fated to meet like this, she added with a wry twist to her lips. Edward heard her, but didn't quite grasp the meaning. He simply stood there, a clear look of worry etched on his face. Seeing Edward's expression, Edina quickly corrected herself. Oh, I was just joking. Don't take it so seriously. She continued to apply pressure to the wound on the prince's forehead as she spoke to Edward. It seems Viscount Quentin is intent on killing the prince. But why isn't the prince in the royal palace? Why does he keep wandering outside? Edward, clearly puzzled as well, echoed her thoughts. It's as if he's searching for something outside, just like before. At his words, Edina abruptly stopped what she was doing and whipped around, a sudden realization dawning on her. She couldn't help but wonder, perhaps it's because in this fictional world, only the Duke of the Berto Kingdom and the king know that I stole Lynette's heart. So, who could have said something that would make Lynette go searching like this? The thought sent a shiver of unease down her spine. Edina's mind raced. It seems I'll have to take him under my protection, personally. But as quickly as the decision formed, she shook her head. No, that's impossible. It can't happen. But what if Lynette suspects something about his heart? The dilemma gnawed at her, a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. Despite the unanswered questions swirling in her mind, she couldn't simply abandon Lynette. What if he died if things continued like this? A torrent of thoughts flooded her mind, making it impossible to stay calm. She clutched her head, letting out a quiet sigh. Oh my goodness. What am I supposed to do now? Edward, standing beside her, watched her shifting expressions with growing anxiety. He glanced nervously towards the carriage. Countess Ewer, cutting off Edina's spiraling thoughts. Edward quickly approached the carriage and asked, "Weren't you just here because of Edward?" Edina had only turned her back for a moment, but when she looked back to where Lynette had been, he was gone. Oh, when did he leave? Lynette was already settled in her carriage. Seeing that things were taken care of, Edina didn't panic or overthink it. She sighed. There was no other way. Saving him came first. She'd deal with the rest later. Edward, Edina directed, take Lynette to my estate immediately. Then return and assess Daniel and Anna's condition. Seeing the two were still breathing, she felt a flicker of relief. Edina asked Edward, "How are Daniel and Anna?" Edward, still deeply concerned for them, immediately replied, "Much better than yesterday, my lady. After all, Daniel personally escorted the prince, and Anna is tending to him." Hearing this, Edina felt a measure of reassurance, but she didn't forget to check on Edward. "Edward, are you all right?" Edward seemed surprised, but answered promptly, "Viscountess, I felt a bit dizzy, but I'm much better now." Hearing him say so, Edina breathed a sigh of relief. "Oh, I see. Thank goodness." Edward paused for a moment, then changed the subject. "His Highness seems to be recovering well." At this, Edina immediately moved towards the door. "Let's go and see how he's doing." At the same time, she marveled silently. As expected, the royal magic is truly something else. The prince was being cared for in another room, resting quietly in a private chamber. Lynette looked peaceful in his sleep. Edina sat beside him, simply watching. For a while, Edina watched him, her thoughts a chaotic jumble. Did Viscount Quentin really intend to kill Lynette, or was he merely trying to threaten him? Lynette's swordsmanship is exceptionally skilled. Furthermore, because of the toxins in Lynette's blood, being injured makes him like Daniel and Anna are now, perhaps even more precarious. But realistically, Lynette isn't such an easy target. If that's the case, then Lynette must have left the palace in search of the heart, and Viscount Quentin is trying to threaten him by saying he doesn't want that. Lost in thought, she was startled by a voice. "What are you thinking about?" Edina quickly glanced down to find Prince Lynette awake. He was looking at her, his expression seemingly no different than usual. "Why did you save me?" As for me, at this point, Lynette trailed off, his gaze drifting towards the clock by the bed, a growing drowsiness in his eyes. Knowing what Lynette wanted to ask, Edina offered an explanation. "Your Highness has been at Mia Dina's estate for 2 days." Hearing this, Lynette covered his face with his hand, a clear sign of his frustration. He didn't utter another word. Displeased by his attitude, Edina questioned, "Don't you want to thank your benefactor?" Lynette clearly wasn't going to thank her. With a slightly irritated smile, he said, "Considering what you've done to me, what makes you think you're my benefactor?" Hearing him say this, Edina wasn't offended, but she didn't argue further, as it wasn't entirely untrue. Indeed, Countess Edina had made countless attempts on Lynette's life. She didn't even try to hide the truth. While none of her schemes had left any evidence, she was indeed the #1 villain in this story. Inwardly, Edina sighed. Even if she claimed she wasn't truly herself, no one would believe her. So she simply sighed and said to Lynette, "Well, let's put that aside and talk about the main issue. For now, I will protect you. This took Lynette completely by surprise. How can you trust someone who has tried to kill you multiple times before and now wants to protect you? This made him blurt out, "Are you in your right mind?" Seeing his reaction, Edina laughed. She replied playfully, "No, I'm not someone who's suddenly been shoved into someone else's body, unsure of when I might die." How could they possibly stay calm? Seeing Edina's reaction, Lynette became even more bewildered. It was clearly written all over his face. "What's going on?" Seeing him like this, Edina's smile widened. She declared, "Nope, I refuse. I definitely refuse." Confining the male protagonist was certainly preferable to being falsely accused of murdering a royal within the restaurant owner's residence. A new day dawned. The wind outside nudged open the lid of the ornate mailbox, revealing a stack of letters waiting for the Countess's attention. These had been discovered during the clearing of Count Candina's, that is, Edina's father's, underground storage. Edina, never one to overlook a potential lead, immediately began to peruse each letter, hoping to glean further information. Her secretary, Edward, arrived to find her engrossed in this task, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. "What's that?" Edward inquired. Edina, still absorbed in the documents, replied without looking up, "These are love letters my father wrote to my mother." "Your father must have loved your mother very much," Edward commented. Indeed, the former Count, Edina's father, had once been considered an ideal gentleman by many. Resting her chin on her hand, Edina responded, "He must have become like this after my mother passed away. After the Countess's death, he seemed to have lost his mind." As for Viscountess Edina, it was said she had shouldered the Count's responsibilities from a young age. Edward, sensing a shadow of sadness in her words, softly addressed her. "Countess," his tone gentle. He approached slowly and, taking her hand, placed a gentle kiss upon it, a gesture of comfort and perhaps something more. "Thanks to you, the Count has become as powerful as he is now," Edward murmured. Edina paused, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "Is he trying to comfort me?" she wondered silently. A blush warmed her cheeks, and she coughed, a little flustered, quickly changing the subject. Well, let's get back to work." Edward, sensing her discomfort, smoothly transitioned to the matter of Prince Lynette. "Prince Lynette, he seems to be recovering well. Do you intend to continue like this?" Edina rested her chin in her hand, a thoughtful expression on her face. "Ah, Prince Lynette," she mused, the memory of the previous night flashing through her mind. Lynette had been distinctly displeased with her suggestion. "Have you thought it through?" He'd argued vehemently, even refusing food and water in his exhaustion before finally relenting and eating obediently, causing no further trouble. Just like before, Edina sighed, turning to Edward. "Viscount Quentin is trying to frame me, isn't he? So, wouldn't it be better if I made it seem like I'm protecting the prince, rather than trying to assassinate him?" Edward considered her words for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Indeed. Meanwhile, Prince Lionheart's mood had darkened considerably. He sat up in his bed and let out a long, weary sigh. His confinement within Edina's mansion had distorted his sense of time. How many days has it been? He wondered silently. What in the world is the Countess thinking? He truly couldn't fathom her actions. The rhythmic tap-tap-tap of footsteps echoed in the hallway. Intrigued, Lionheart decided to venture out of his room and investigate. Reaching the top of the stairs on the second floor, he overheard a conversation below. What? My amount isn't the largest." The words piqued his curiosity, leaving him wondering what was being discussed. The voices continued to drift up to him. "Viscount Quentin is the one who raised the most funds." Lionheart's confusion deepened. What fundraising are they talking about? He descended the stairs further, finally catching sight of the speakers. It was Edina, speaking urgently to Edward. "We're still on break, right?" she asked. "Yes," Edward confirmed. "Let's do this," Edina continued, her voice filled with determination. "We'll bribe the bishop, just throw money at it, or if that doesn't work, we'll create the power ourselves. The Edina family will have the highest donation amount." She turned to Edward, her tone laced with a mixture of trust and reliance. "Can you help me with this?" Edward's response was immediate and confident. A smile played on his lips. "Yes, you needn't worry. In the churches of this barren continent, people believe in only one God. Amen. The Holy See's power is immense. Fundraising for the church is one of its prerogatives, wielding significant influence over other nations. Most importantly, donations are tax-deductible. For those who reach the highest donation amounts each year, they receive approximately a 60% tax reduction. Therefore, every year, Countess Edina and Viscount Quentin compete to see who raises the most funds, and Countess Edina always wins. Although I donate a lot of money, I still need to work tirelessly day and night throughout the year. Suddenly, Edina paused. Wait a minute, that's her and not me. Edina immediately dismissed the chaotic thoughts from her mind and told Edward, remember to donate a large sum to the church. This is a loan to finance the allocation of war. The more money you make, the better, so you can acquire magic stones to create an artificial heart. Suddenly, a voice came from behind Edina. Greetings, Countess. It was none other than Prince Lynette. Edina didn't seem surprised by Lynette's appearance. She turned around and inquired about his health. Are you feeling better? Lynette's demeanor was also calm. He nodded and said, thanks to your help, I'm feeling much better now, Edina. Hearing that his condition had improved, she smiled brightly and said, that's good news. Lynette spoke immediately after she finished. I heard that the Edina family donates to the church every year, but it seems that might be true. Edina was quite surprised to see him react this way. She looked at the prince's shining eyes in front of her and thought silently, those eyes. Does he think I donated a lot of money to the temple? For charity? If you think that way, my conscience truly feels uneasy. Oh my God. Although she thought that way, she still replied with a smile, well, I don't want to deny it. Then she thought to herself, it's okay. The truth is fine. It's okay. The morning passed quickly. Soon, twilight descended upon the romantic sky. A diner called out to Prince Lynette. Lynette was standing in the courtyard of the diner's mansion, silently glancing towards the source of the call. It was Edina. Her presence in the courtyard wasn't strange at all. He didn't greet her, but immediately expressed his surprise. As far as I know, camellias are hard to find, yet they bloom so luxuriantly here. Edina cheerfully replied, this is Edina, didn't you know? In the Edina family, this flower is our symbol. In the cold winter days, when other flowers struggle to bloom, the camellia blooms brilliantly, displaying its colors in the snow-covered fields. As Edina spoke, Lynette reached out and plucked a flower from the blossoming garden. He carefully looked at the flower in his hand and offered it to her. Edina didn't accept it, but told Lynette to keep it. The Edina family are those who can prove themselves by refusing to succumb to the limits of a challenge. That's why we, the Edina family, use the camellia as our symbol. Lynette suddenly fell silent after hearing her words. Then he abruptly called out her name, Countess Edina, his face unusually flushed. Lynette himself was also embarrassed. Finally, he asked the question he had been wanting to know. In the end, what do you want from me? Hearing this question, Edina was caught off guard. She didn't expect him to ask so directly. The two stared at each other, silently, for a long time under the scarlet camellia garden. Lynette continued, it seems the Countess really wants something from me. May I ask what you desire? Edina continued to look at him, remaining silent. Her thoughts were a whirlwind. I stole his heart, and now I want to get it back. So please treat me well. Damn it, I can't say that. Although she thought a lot, Edina didn't reveal anything. She said mysteriously, the answer to that question will come in due time. The prince will know. After hearing Edina's answer, Lynette fell silent. He gazed deeply at her. Edina also felt that there was nothing more to say to Lynette. She immediately turned and left. Watching Edina's retreating figure and hearing the click of her departing footsteps, a strange sadness crept into Leonard's eyes and settled upon his face. He stood alone in the garden, gaze fixed on the vibrant red camellia he held in his hand. The next day, within the walls of Edina's mansion, a lavish and delectable feast adorned the long table. Young maidservants, their faces alight with uncontainable excitement, gazed upon the spread. A happy, boisterous chatter filled the air as the mansion staff gradually filled every seat at the table. Edward, taken aback by the spectacle, exclaimed, Countess, what is all this? Edina simply smiled at him, offering no explanation. After a moment, she spoke, her voice brimming with cheer. Much has happened recently, and everyone has worked so hard. So, the two housekeepers have prepared a surprise party for everyone today. You all deserve a bit of relaxation. Edward approached Edina, lowering his voice to ask, how did you come up with such an idea? Edina, upon hearing this, simply offered him another smile. Such parties were an uncommon occurrence in this land. Typically, it was the heads of noble families who hosted festivities for their servants. The staff at Edina's mansion were generally paid more handsomely than those in other households, even receiving monthly bonuses, and their working conditions were maintained to the highest standards. What was the reason for such generosity? It was due to the loyalty of the servants employed there. Given the Countess's reputation, the family had likely engaged in many unsavory activities, making the loyalty of their staff, of paramount importance. By occasionally hosting such parties, the servants felt appreciated and their loyalty was further solidified. Lynette arrived and joined the festivities. Witnessing the scene, he was genuinely surprised, finding it hard to believe. Had the Countess truly orchestrated all of this on her own? Hearing his question, Edina replied, "If it were true, would you believe it?" Lynette remained silent, offering no response. Observing his silence, Edina continued, raising a finger as she declared, "There is only one thing His Highness, the Prince, needs to do at the Countess's residence, and that is to live comfortably under my protection." "That is precisely what I desire," Edina said, beaming a radiant smile at Lynette's incredulous expression. The image of Edina from the past resurfaced in Lynette's mind. "I only wish for your Highness to die quickly." The memory left Lynette deeply perplexed. "That's what I heard after waking from being poisoned." In any case, those who wished for your Highness to live were not limited to Viscount Quentin, were they? Even so, wasn't that Viscount merely intending to use and abuse you? Do you remember how furious you were then, yet unable to utter a single word? A year ago, those threats were clearly spoken to me by the Countess, yet now she has changed so suddenly. "I will protect your Highness. At least now I can say that I no longer care about your Highness. Now, I will protect the Crown Prince." Why such a drastic change? I thought she might poison me again. So for the first 4 days of the mansion, I didn't touch any food or drink. When I was exhausted, I reluctantly went to find water, but to no avail. Contrary to my expectations, the Countess did nothing. In fact, she was so busy that she didn't even notice me. Just like today, Lynette slowly descended the stairs, gazing out the window. Something outside caught his attention. It was 3 children playing merrily in the garden of Edina's mansion. A maid, noticing his apparent confusion, explained, "Those are children from the orphanage, Lynette." Lynette inquired further, "In this unfamiliar place?" "The Lynette orphanage." Knowing he had more questions, the maid continued, "It's an orphanage sponsored by the Countess, and they often come here to see her. I once heard a rumor that the Countess was using the children for her own gain, but that doesn't seem to be the case." One of the children, spotting Edina, ran towards her with uncontainable joy. "Ah, Kunt!" Just then, the little girl threw her arms tightly around Edina. Lynette, standing in the room, watched the scene intently. Edina played with the child with genuine delight, appearing nothing like someone who would exploit a child for personal gain. Compared to witches and villains, a woman like this was far more terrifying. A devil in human form, as the saying went. She'd been plotting to kill him. Perhaps this was a second false persona. Lynette gritted his teeth, disgusted by the conversation he'd overheard between Edina and Edward a few days prior. Wasn't that the largest sum we had? The details were still being finalized, but the Edina family would be making the largest donation. "We need to make a substantial donation to that church, a donation to support the orphanage. So why am I the only one burdened with this?" Edina noticed him then and greeted him with a smile. "Oh, Prince Lynette, good morning." Does Edina's smile make you feel a little shy? Am I angry? I'm angry that she's kind to everyone but me. If not, how do you feel now? The Countess seems to really want something from me. May I ask what it is? Alone in her office, Edina sat lost in thought, Lynette's words echoing in her mind. There was no shortage of work, but she found it difficult to concentrate. With a sigh, Edina realized she couldn't simply sit there pondering all day. She resumed her work, attempting to regain her usual focus. Suddenly, a knock came at the door. "So, what does the Countess require this morning?" A servant's voice called from outside. "Countess, the Prince wishes to see you." Lynette entered the Countess's office, looking particularly radiant today. The sapphire embedded in his collar gleamed, and his hair shone with an unusual luster. As soon as Edina saw the Prince enter, she thought he looked as handsome as ever. Lynette spoke first. "No matter how I think about it, I can't bring myself to trust the Countess." At his words, Edina thought, would it kill him to just get to the point? She gestured with her hand. "Would you care for some tea?" Edina watched Lynette, sensing his hesitation. After a moment, Lynette finally gave a slight shake of his head. Edina sighed again, as if to say he was too proud to accept her tea. A moment later, the tea was ready and placed on the table. Edina delicately raised the cup to her lips, taking a small sip. She sighed again, her gaze fixed on the tea in her hand. She addressed the point Lynette had made earlier. "So, You say you can't trust the Countess, Edina explained, but my uncle is even less trustworthy. We're here today to discuss a deal, Countess, the terms of an agreement. While we're still in Edina territory, I expect you to offer me your protection. But Edina wasn't surprised in the slightest. She felt the unspoken implication. This isn't the promise I made before. But Prince Lynette quickly clarified, I can't trust such an empty vow. So, draft a contract according to the Countess's wishes. Edina considered this, remaining silent for a long moment. Even after giving it some thought, I see no obstacles, aside from matters of the heart. However, this deal cannot be rescinded. After a moment, Edina decided she couldn't simply sign a contract on the spot. Her gaze sharpened with resolve. How about 4 days from now? How about we discuss this again in 4 days? I'll have a suitable contract prepared by then. The prince was entirely at her mercy. In truth, for his own protection, he would wait as long as she required. He nodded his agreement. Edina seemed considerably more at ease. This is good. This buys us some time. Now I'll discuss with Edward again and decide whether to skip this mission. With the next 4 days secured, Prince Lynette, having nothing further to discuss, turned to leave, walking towards the door. Just as his hand reached for the knob, a soft knock sounded from the other side. Edina, assuming few had reason to seek her out at this hour, and Anna shared the sentiment, granted entry. The man hurried to open the door and rushed in. Countess, you seem to be in a hurry. The old man, upon entering and seeing the prince also present, stopped abruptly. Prince Lynette watched him silently, seemingly with nothing to say, waiting to see Edina's reaction. He seems in such a rush. Something must have happened. What is it? The old butler bowed his head earnestly. I apologize for the interruption, but it's a matter of urgency. His face was grim. The Nova organization has made its move. The Nova organization handles the trade of all illegal goods, meaning there's an illegal auction taking place. This happens so often, even after they've been warned numerous times. Edina sighed, settling into her desk chair. These people just don't learn. Since I came to this world a year ago, I forbade the sale or auction of any illegal items in this region. There was someone who organized illegal auctions, and it was Countess Edina. She reminded herself that she had to meet Joe Biden this time. Lynette, having heard the story, couldn't just leave it at that, nor could he stand idly by. So he asked, the illegal auction is related to the Biden family, isn't it? It seemed the prince knew a little something about that family. Do you know them? Lynette inquired. Lynette thought carefully. We know that there's a merchant who is making a formula transaction with the Biden family. Good, she thought. This is good. Now I have a reason to make a deal. If he helps me with this, in return, I will protect him in the mansion. She raised her hand in declaration. Regarding the contract I mentioned earlier, I'll prepare the contract now. Finally, the carriage was fully prepared, and the prince, the countess, and Edward were all seated inside. The carriage continued on its usual course. Edina was preoccupied with the contract in her hands. She appeared lost in thought, her mind on business. The prince noticed this, and then his attention was drawn to the red earrings the countess wore. Are you asking if the countess's earrings have any special meaning? Edina reached up and touched the earrings. While it doesn't have any particular meaning, someone gave it to me, and that someone must be the third person in this carriage. Edward, who sat quietly, observing their conversation. I don't know who gave it, but it seems that person really cherishes the countess. The prince also understood the meaning of the earrings. Edina immediately glanced back at the person who had given her the earrings, finding nothing particularly remarkable. Edward quickly averted his gaze, avoiding the countess's eyes. Edina turned back to the prince, wondering why he thought so. The young prince explained that the people of the Duchy of Argenbar believed that carrying garnets while traveling would ward off danger. Edina now realized something. It made sense for a nation known for magic to have such a meaning. Many elders in Argent believed that garnets could ward off death, so they were used in weapons or made into jewelry to be carried. At that moment, Edward began to look back at the countess. The two looked at each other. Edward recalled the first time he gave those earrings to Edina. She picked up a small gift box. What's this? And opened it. Inside were a pair of garnet earrings. This is a gift I wanted to give to that person. Thank you. I'll treasure them. Edward, the prince still unaware of who had gifted the earrings to the countess, wanted to ask something regarding that. Just then, the carriage came to a stop. It seems we've arrived, Countess, Edward said. Oh, have we? This made Edina forget the question the prince had just asked. But there was nothing Lynette could do anyway, so he remained silent. It was a very clear and beautiful morning. Duke Biden came out cheerfully to greet the prince and the countess. It must have been a long journey for you all. Edina replied cheerfully. Distance? What distance? I'm in the capital too. Huh. This parliamentary session shouldn't last too long, should it? Her expression then shifted, becoming perplexed. Prince Lynette emerged from the countess's carriage, arms crossed, and offered a cautious greeting. It's been a while. Duke Biden. Edina couldn't hide her surprise. Your Highness, I don't understand what's happening. Lynette stepped down from the carriage and stood beside her. Why are the two of you together? Edina asked delicately. Perhaps we should go inside and talk. Tea and refreshments are already prepared at Duke Biden's castle, just waiting to be enjoyed. Your Highness, it's been a while. It has been quite some time. A flicker of displeasure crossed Duke Biden's face as Lynette and Edina entered together. To be honest, I'm also surprised to see the two of you here together. Edina clearly saw the flicker of something unreadable in the Duke's eyes, but maintained her composure. Both His Highness and I are here. What is there to be surprised about? Because the Countess has always wanted the prince dead. The Duke abruptly covered his mouth after speaking, as if he'd let something slip. Or perhaps it was intentional. Either way, the words clearly displeased Lynette, who glared at the Duke. Seeing Lynette's reaction, the Duke quickly changed the subject. Oh, what brings the two of you here? Edina thought to herself, I actually quite enjoy the coincidence of appearing with the title and identity of Countess Edina, because in my past life, I was someone who died suddenly from overwork. So in this life, I can fully embrace this identity, as I can enjoy the power and privileges of being a noble. After all, growing up in Korea, I understand how terrifying the hierarchy can be. Therefore, with such an opportunity, I couldn't possibly refuse. However, the illegal auction is a different matter. That's because rare animals or mystical creatures will be auctioned off at that illegal auction. Some say my actions are hypocritical, but even so, I still find it unacceptable. Edina raised her teacup to her lips. I heard that the Duke's family has created a rather interesting playground. Yes, that playground is also within my territory, yet I'm the only one who isn't allowed to join. The Duke still seemed unsure of what Edina was implying. Viscountess, there seems to be some misunderstanding, but Edina maintained her bright smile. No, I haven't attended an auction in a long time. I've been too busy lately and haven't paid much attention. But you know, I'm also one of the biggest fans of auctions, right? She thought. Indeed, historically, only Countess Edina has been interested in auctions, so I hope you'll send the invitation to both me and His Highness. So, she continued aloud, I hope you'll send the invitation to both of us. The Duke replied cheerfully, Of course, I'll send the invitations to both of you. Finally, as night fell, Lynette and Edina returned to the Countess's mansion. Lynette picked up the paper and read the content softly. Left finger touches the lioness. Still haven't found the flower. He stared silently at the paper, then clutched it tightly in his hand. This is a paper of unknown origin. Left finger refers to my uncle. Viscount Quentin. The lioness is the queen. The flower must refer to the heart. Uncle must have already met the queen, but he still doesn't know the secret of the royal heart. He sat alone on the railing, lost in thought. Originally, the heart was a secret passed down through generations of the royal family. So how did the culprit find out and steal my heart? Suddenly, a figure appeared. No one can save the cursed child. Lynette jolted awake, as if it had all been a dream. He had just woken up when he saw his uncle, Quentin, standing before him. No one can save your highness but me. You should know that by now, the old man whispered. Fear crept into the prince's eyes, his body still trembling uncontrollably. The old man's chilling laughter, no one loves your highness, echoed in Lynette's ears. Tossing and turning in his sleep, the prince cried out, Shut up. His very form seemed to cower in terror. Edina, unable to sleep, heard the commotion from Lynette's room. She immediately grabbed a lamp and hurried over. Lynette jolted awake from his nightmare, startled at the sight of the Countess. Gently, the Countess brought the flickering candle closer to the prince. Your Highness, she inquired softly, what's wrong? The prince's breath came in ragged gasps. He looked terrified, visibly so. A deep concern for the young man's plight flickered in Edina's expression. Lynette, gazing at her, thought, she's truly an unusual woman. She wants to be a villain, he mused, but she seems genuinely worried about me. So many unanswered questions swirled in the prince's mind. He hesitated, unable to bring himself to confide in her, to ask for her help. The vast castle was alive with the whispers of the night. First, the sound of Adina's footsteps. For some unknown reason, she was wandering the halls late at night, a candle in hand. I should have worn another coat, she thought, shivering. It's always so cold here. Even colder at night. Then she heard it, a moan coming from one of the rooms. The person inside kept crying out, "Uncle, no, no." The Countess instantly recognized the voice. Prince Lynette. It was no longer just a moan. It was a scream, sharp and chilling. Prince Lynette was actually yelling at someone. Quiet, without hesitation, the Countess threw open the door. "Your Highness," she cried. "Are you all right?" Edina's warm voice broke through the nightmare, and the prince's eyes fluttered open. The tension eased from his face. Seeing the Countess, the person he wanted to see, he seemed relieved, exhausted after his ordeal, wanting only to fall back asleep. Slowly, peacefully, he closed his eyes, this time into a tranquil slumber. Still, Edina felt the need to check on him further. She walked over to Lynette's bedside, studying him, trying to decipher what had just transpired. She couldn't shake the image of his distress. The details replayed in her mind. Why? She wondered. Perhaps Viscount Quentin's abuse left deep scars on Lynette. She knew the man, even the nature of their relationship. Finally, after the night of nightmares, morning arrived. The prince and his entourage set off through the forest, departing from the county. The soldiers, in full formal attire and armor, marched in precise formation, a disciplined display of protection for their prince. Despite the nightmares and the sleepless night, Lynette maintained a regal composure. Dressed in his finery, he appeared alert and dignified. He glanced at the Countess, who leaned against the carriage door, gazing at the passing scenery. He seemed to have an unspoken question for her, perhaps wondering if she had witnessed his nightmare last night. His gaze fell, a hint of disappointment, perhaps even dejection, in his expression at not receiving her attention. A heavy silence settled over the carriage. Finally, the maid beside the Countess spoke. "Countess, why did you send so many knights?" So, it wasn't Prince Lynette who had brought the large retinue of soldiers and attendants, but Edina. "Because it's dangerous," she replied. "There might even be bloodshed today." "What?" The mere mention of it left Edina impassive, but the maid jumped, her shriek so close and loud that it made the Countess's ears ring. The maid was bewildered. "Countess, what are you talking about? What's dangerous about the auction? Let's not go then. I object." Her loud voice was now beginning to irritate even Prince Lynette, seated across from them. "Calm down," Edina said soothingly to her maid. "Didn't we agree to go and see what those attending the auction are up to?" Intrigued by her plan, the prince asked how. "With the best approach to an evening soiree I've ever witnessed. You seem remarkably confident for this appearance. At least, you've prepared a most fitting look." Prince Lynette, seeing such an evening gown, felt a blush creep up his neck. He hadn't expected her, in his eyes, to be so radiant and beautiful, as if shimmering stars surrounded her. Soon, Prince Lynette's procession arrived. "Please, this way." The hall teemed with guests, wealthy nobles from all corners of the realm, flaunting their status. The attendant standing outside, guiding everyone, had to pause for a few seconds. The most likely reason being the picture-perfect power couple, Prince Lynette and Countess Edina, side by side, both adorned in matching violet attire. "Here is the invitation." Edina, without hesitation, produced an envelope bearing a red wax seal. "Please enter." After inspecting the information and the Biden family seal, the attendant directed Edina and Lynette inside. Furthermore, the attendant still failed to recognize the handsome Prince Lynette, accompanying the Viscount as the prince himself. Of course, the two couldn't skip any part of the auction process, including the masks and numbers. "Before entering, please wear these. For today's auction, Prince Lynette and Madam, your numbers are 14 and 15. Inside the auction hall, the organizers had arranged the items in a circle around the guests, naturally with tight security. So, before entering the auction hall, a mask was offered. Prince Lynette, slightly surprised, turned and asked, "Aren't you wearing one?" "I don't need to." The Countess smiled confidently, radiating self-assurance. I'm going to show the world that I am a lady of consequence. With that, Edina personally placed a mask on Prince Lynette as His Highness needed it more. Meanwhile, she mused, but if it weren't Lynette, if I drew all the attention at this auction, people would wonder who the man appearing with me is. Edina even entertained the thought. Perhaps her plan was quite impactful. Then she chuckled inwardly, thinking that if everyone knew it was Prince Lynette, things would surely become chaotic. Prince Lynette beside her simply stood there, looking perplexed. We need to let many people know that our relationship is improving, and the final step is to crown the prince. Put on your hooded cloak. All right, let's go, Countess. The Countess uttered these words in such close proximity that both of them felt a flicker of awkwardness, especially Prince Lynette, who had been staring at her without blinking, not resisting such closeness even in public. The Countess herself was startled, perhaps by the prince's aura, and she was the first to break away from his intense gaze. Let's return to our seats, she said. In the seating area, there were already many guests of varying ages and from different walks of life, some forming groups and chatting, while others preferred to keep a low profile. After confirming that Prince Lynette was properly seated beside her, Edina could finally relax her gaze. Immediately following, a man appeared, greeting them, apologizing for the wait, and acknowledging that the long journey in such cold weather must have been arduous. I am number 15. Edina double-checked her number. The organizer, not wanting to disappoint the guests, immediately brought out the opening item to liven up the atmosphere. I would like to introduce the first auction item. As the auction began, all the lights in the room focused on the main stage, catching the Countess somewhat off guard. What's going on? If it's this dark, what's the point of wearing a mask? The first item is the necklace worn by Queen Lemonade, a black pendant, teardrop design, exuding artistic beauty. Prince Lynette recoiled instantly upon hearing the item, not expecting to find it here, a royal artifact. As the prince flinched at the item, Edina turned and whispered in his ear, "Your Highness, could you please investigate where illegal traders usually operate?" Illegal auctions, usually conducted by noble families, take place within the hierarchical upper class with other noble families. Working with businesses, she called superiors to the illegal traders. Edina supplied goods for the illicit auction. Fluent in the jargon of the auction house, she reasoned she needed to know who the merchants were participating in these forbidden dealings within her territory. The first item, after a moment, received a bid of 304 duze for bidder number 2. A young attendant promptly acknowledged the bid, reporting, "Yes, bidder number 2 now offers 304 duze." Edina considered the denomination. For Duzelen, 304 duze was merely the equivalent of a month's basic living expenses. Such a starting price was quite reasonable. Immediately following, the first competitive bid arrived with the raising of paddle number 18. Yes, bidder number 18 offers 650 duze. Bidder number 2 counters with 700 duze. Bidder number 18 raises to 804 duze. 804 duze. Do I hear any further bids? A pause hung in the air, the expectation that the price would settle there. But no, someone was biding their time, thinking, slow and steady. Let me show my hand. As expected, bidder number 15, one of the dining attendees, raised the stakes to 1,004 duze. Yes, bidder number 15 has joined the fray. Not to be outdone, the earlier bidder, number 2, returned with a bid of 1,104 duze, then a bold jump to 2,004 duze. Edina began to gleam in the dimly lit room, both bids landing on even numbers. Yes, we are at 2,004 duze. If there are no further bids, the item will be sold for 2,004 duze. The final announcement echoed, 2,004 duze. And so the first item, with a starting bid of a mere 304 duze, was secured. At this moment, bidder number 2 couldn't help but feel a pang of regret, turning to glare at the one who had snatched their desired prize. Edina, however, was elated. Perhaps her plan was already unfolding smoothly, even if the auction room remained cloaked in shadows. Excellent, just like that, she thought. Coming to today's auction, I'm going to sweep the board. The second item was brought forth. Surprisingly, the offerings on these auction platforms were incredibly diverse, ranging from royal artifacts to animals and everything in between. Soon, the product was introduced. This is a rat we captured in the wild. It possesses a special ability, the young attendant continued, promptly giving the rat a pat. Something unusual, something astonishing occurred. The rat, not only enormous in size, breathed fire. As soon as the audience witnessed the creature's skill, excited whispers rippled through the stands. What do you think? It looks cute, but it's not like that at all. While everyone was still gossiping and spreading rumors, Edina made her move, bidding 10,000 for due. Such a high opening bid startled the audience, and murmurs erupted anew. Many curious guests turned to see who was so willing to spend such a sum. Seeing no immediate reaction, Edina repeated, "I said, I bid 10,000 for due. Do you not understand?" My apologies. Perhaps even the young man didn't expect such a grand gesture at today's auction. Bidder number 15 has just offered 10,000 for due. 10,000 for due. Do I hear any others? Neither hurried nor hesitant. A diner who had been waiting finally spoke. Some within the stone castle had already mentioned her. Isn't that Countess Dana? That Countess Dana. Finally, when no one else bid on the creature, the young man confirmed the price. Bidder number 15 has successfully won the bid for 10,000 for due. At this moment, Edina seemed to shine on the stage, needing no spotlight. The auction continued, the familiar, repetitive announcements ringing out. Third item, bidder number 15 wins. It was a stunning crown inlaid with red gemstones. Even a simple painting was secured by the same bidder. Fourth item, bidder number 15 wins. By now, Prince Lynette was truly curious. Countess, do you really intend to buy everything being auctioned here today? Do you have that much money? Before finishing his question, Prince Lynette realized the answer himself. It must be so. After all, she is the Countess. Just then, Edina, also known as Adiana, spoke. Didn't I say I would make them pay in the way I know best? Everyone here will leave empty-handed. I intend to bid on every single item auctioned today. Seeing the rather reckless intent of the bidder, Prince Lynette asked directly, "Does the Countess not intend to survive in noble society? This world exists only on money and power. Of course, when you possess all these things, the first thing to do is enjoy them, because no one knows for sure if they'll still be there tomorrow." Prince Lynette observed a bidder, remaining silent. Receiving no reaction, the prince spoke with a hint of frustration. "I still resent you, Countess Edina." But a part of him acknowledged a misunderstanding. Edina, seemingly accustomed to such sentiments, simply offered a faint smile. "Isn't it just a misunderstanding?" Then, across the hall, Prince Lynette spotted someone they'd been searching for. The prince immediately rose to his feet, giving chase. "I think I just saw that person. I'll be right back." The prince quickly slipped out of the auction hall, unnoticed, and swiftly moved behind a large curtain. This was the final item of the auction, and no one could outbid Edina. It was a unique experience for the young auctioneer. The last item was a beast, its claws razor-sharp, saliva dripping constantly from its maw. It resembled a green wolf, but possessed 2 horns. Even restrained, it lacked a protective cage. The auction was nearing its end, but Edina still wanted to play, to flaunt her wealth and power before everyone. Even before Edina could place a bid, someone called out, 100,000 forts. Even Viscount 6 turned his head. This was no jest. The individual in seat number 11 exuded a strange aura, masked, their identity shrouded in darkness. A hush fell over the hall, lingering until Edina, compelled to raise the stakes, declared 150,000 forts. She, too, noticed the dark-haired figure in seat 11. Such raven hair was a rarity in this world. 300,000 forts, the masked figure countered. Perhaps this person had been waiting specifically for this item, unconcerned with doubling the price. Edina continued to observe the white mask, reminiscent of the Phantom of the Opera. Even Edina couldn't fathom the masked figure's intentions. What did this person truly want? Would they continue bidding indefinitely? If so, her plan to display her wealth would be thwarted. Yet, Edina remained determined to fight until she could fight no more. 500,000 forts, she declared. Upon hearing the price, the masked figure simply smiled faintly, perhaps having anticipated this. 3 million forts, they stated, without a flicker of hesitation. The sheer amount stunned Edina. What was she to do? Left with no other recourse, she gripped her skirt tightly. Then, a staggering sum was declared. 5 million forts. The worry etched on Edina's face was unmistakable. This was an immense sum, even if she were to utilize all her accumulated hidden funds. It might not be enough. The figure in seat 11 smiled, seemingly pleased with the outcome. Perhaps their plan was to drain Edina's coffers. Are there any other bids? The auctioneer, pale from witnessing the escalating prices, asked weakly. 5 million. Going once. Going twice. Sold. For 5 million forts. The bidding is closed. This auction has become the exclusive affair of one bidder. These are the items I won, Edina declared, gesturing towards 2 treasure chests and 2 beasts with special abilities. Just as she finished speaking, Prince Lynette returned from behind the curtain. Edina turned to him. The prince was dragging a terrified commoner, whose presence startled the auction organizers. Edina spoke softly. My investments have increased recently. I'm looking to recoup those investments, so I plan to clean this place up. What do you think? The auction organizers immediately felt a chill. Unable to offer a satisfactory response, they stood dumbfounded. One of them quickly bowed at a 90-degree angle. Forgive me, Countess. We had no intention of hosting an illegal auction. This man brought the items and requested the auction. We didn't know. The organizer, feigning ignorance, placed all the blame on the commoner kneeling beside the prince. It's all his fault. The young man's words prompted the older man to speak as well. The only thing he could say at that time was, "You blasted Countess, you'd best make a decision now to avoid intractable disputes and chaos. I'll cover the bidding expenses, but the profits must be increased and given entirely to me. What about us?" They were somewhat at a loss for the diner's actions. Consider it a debt between us. Edina's decision brought them a sense of relief. Thank you, Countess. Well, the Nova organization part is taken care of. Can we take a look at the list of participants in the auction? A diner made the offer, and they immediately agreed. Here you are. She took the list and scanned it, clearly searching for the man in seat number 11 who had stood in her way today. I saw a man today whose black hair resembles mine. Do you know who he is? She decided to ask directly. Let me see. Aside from the Countess, no one with black hair came here today. The blonde man's answer was quite strange. If that were the case, the Countess was more hesitant than ever. Who on earth was that man? Apparently, an outsider could be mixed into this small-scale auction. The next morning, Edina awoke in her bed, her simple beauty still present. Edina woke up, got out of bed, and opened the curtains to greet the first rays of sunlight of the day. The sunlight made her squint. Today might be a beautiful, sunny day. Recalling yesterday's illegal auction, all the auctioned items were returned to their original places, even those mythical creatures. I released them too. The moment they gained their freedom, their eyes seemed to come alive, as if they were reborn. It was really difficult to put everything back in place, and it was even more difficult to deal with the complicated situation brought about by the illegal activities. Meanwhile, Edina also saw something from her bedroom window, the appearance of Prince Lynette. In the morning, the prince seemed to have just woken up, draped in a robe, and walked into the garden filled with red flowers. Gazing at their beauty, the prince's eyes were filled with emotion. After Edina tidied her hair and clothes, she came downstairs. From a distance, she couldn't see his eyes, so she could only wonder, why did he come suddenly? Does he like these flowers? Just standing there watching felt awkward, so a diner came over and started a conversation. Your Highness, it turns out your Highness was also thinking about a diner. Hearing her voice from behind, he immediately asked, I still don't understand what the Countess's intentions are. What are you talking about? The Countess was a little confused by the prince's question. In the morning, the prince said nothing, but just raised his hand and smoothed the Countess's hair. This scene was very romantic. To deal with the illegal auction, she didn't hesitate to let us stay at her mansion. However, I think she must have other intentions. From the prince's words, Edina wondered if he was some kind of divine being who could guess so accurately. At this rate, would she soon be discovered as the culprit? Who stole whose heart? The Countess thought to herself, but on the surface, she could only ask with a gentle smile, Are you not satisfied? The prince added, The contract proposed by the Countess is somewhat unusual, so I can't trust it. Edina came to this country, and it could only be said that even if she did well, she was still suspected. Seeing the other party's attitude, Prince Lynette remained silent and said nothing. Then, Adiana mentioned another topic. Viscount Quentin is not married and has no children. Isn't the Viscount planning to have your highness join the Quentin family? The Lehman Empire's royal family has a rule that high-ranking nobles cannot become king. Speaking of this issue, Prince Lynette fell silent again. Seeing this, Edina continued. There are 3 ways to reach the Allot Kingdom. Edina seemed to know a lot of things. She said, the first method is to take a boat through the city, and the second method is to take a carriage through the Duchy of Argent. She even knew exactly where to go and what transportation to use. Ultimately, crossing the rotting mountains is unavoidable. While it presents some risks, adjustments, and the levying of transit taxes will make it more advantageous. She had even planned future developments in other regions, but does anyone know the route through the rotting mountains? It turned out that this last-mentioned option was her greatest uncertainty. Fortunately, Prince Lynette knew it was Quentin's territory. Indeed, I'm about to engage in a trade agreement with the Allot Kingdom. Having the fastest route to Allot would save on labor costs and be highly beneficial for trade. Of course, doing business with Allot had a primary objective, winning back Lynette's heart. I still don't quite understand your meaning, Prince Lynette, certainly not understanding what Lynette's heart desired. In the end, the Countess had gone in a circle, only to arrive at one goal. I want to create a reason to help your highness. Looking at the beautiful scenery in the middle of the garden, the prince felt a sense of melancholy at the thought of doing something for her. The day had passed quickly. Their conversation had taken place only half a day ago, and now the setting sun was casting long shadows across the castle. In the wide corridor, Edward handed Countess Edina a letter. This is a letter from the Berto Kingdom. Clutching the letter tightly, Edina began to read. I have never revealed my heart to the outside world. The answer was as expected. Lynette was looking for something beyond royalty. As Edina read the letter, she thought, not heart, but something else, right? Edina continued down the stairs as she read, and what was bound to happen, happened. She tripped. Countess! Fortunately, Edward caught her arm just in time. For a moment, there was no distance between them. The two stood close together. Both quickly became aware of their proximity and then moved apart. The red-haired man let out a long sigh. You have to be careful. I told you not to read while walking. Edina reached the bottom step, regained her balance, and said, I'm sorry. I'll be more careful. Laughter drifted in from outside the castle walls. Edina, in her study, immediately heard the sound. It was Prince Lynette playing in the snow with the children from a street. In the cold and silent grand castle, Edina smiled. So it's the children. Unable to resist, Edina opened the castle window to hear the children's cheerful laughter more clearly. A little girl among the children immediately noticed Edina's presence and turned to look at her. The little girl innocently ran towards the window where Edina stood. The Countess is playing with us children. A boy in the group loudly cautioned her. Mary, don't say such things to the Countess. Edina was indeed a woman of the world. Instead of echoing the boy's words, she asked Asta, do you like Mary? Faced with this unexpected question, the boy could only blush, unsure how to respond. How could children understand liking and loving? Just waiting for the opportunity, the other children in the group now had something to tease each other about. As for liking Mary, he yelled, and only at this moment did Prince Lynette, who hadn't actually witnessed the whole exchange, ask, why are you so cruel to the children? Even though she couldn't tell if the prince's expression was playful or serious, Edina simply smiled, resting her chin in her hand, and even corrected the prince. Cute, not charming. Cute. The prince repeated the word, his gaze drifting elsewhere. Seeing the prince's attitude and posture just now, Edina was also a little curious about what Lynette was thinking. Who knew where he'd finally found the courage? But he whispered in Edina's ear, she's cute even without saying a word. The words he'd just spoken echoed clearly in Edina's ears, making her even more embarrassed. In the cold weather, her face flushed as red as a strawberry. What is he saying? She was still flustered by the warm words when she received another mark of attention. Prince Lynette directly took off his coat and offered it to her simply because she was standing by the window, not even having stepped outside. Then he simply and gently reminded her, it's getting cold now, isn't it? She can't only think of herself. I'm all right, and His Highness is outside too. The prince has the most justifiable reason. I prefer the cold, Lynette mused, a strange echo of Edina's own sentiment. My heart is racing. Why is it beating so fast? Hers must be fluttering from the warmth the prince brought on this snowy day. The image of Lynette standing gently in the snow seemed so beautiful to Edina in that moment. Even if she didn't know what this feeling was, Edina thought it surely wasn't good for the heart. The scene shifted to another castle where it had not yet begun to snow. Inside, a woman with her hair neatly tied back also gazed out the window. The queen, hearing a call from behind her, had to turn around. An elderly duke, Quentin himself, held a black object in his hand. "This is the amulet I received from the Duke of Argent," he said. The amulet was handed directly to the queen. One side was black, but the back was engraved with an intricate gold pattern. A viscount, curious, asked the queen if the amulet truly worked. As the viscount inquired, the queen, too, wanted to confirm something. "Wasn't this amulet made by Princess Ajabel herself?" "Yes, that's correct," the viscount confirmed. "Viscount, do you know of ego?" The queen then explained that in the Eugen language, it meant darkness, or could also refer to a demon. As she explained, the queen placed the amulet against her person. For a moment, darkness stirred from its winter slumber, and that darkness needed someone with the strongest magical power as a host. So it often awoke from Princess Ajabel's body. If it was an amulet she made, then it was definitely the power of darkness. Then, where does that person intend to use it? Having heard the meaning of the amulet, the viscount grew more curious. "It's Lloydie," the queen answered curtly. "You mean the crown prince, right?" At the mention of this, the queen stopped speaking and abruptly turned to leave. Then she walked away, leaving the duke bewildered and full of questions. That very day, the viscount returned to his estate. Standing in this castle, the viscount felt a bit relieved. He took off his coat and then asked the young man standing nearby, "How is Lynette?" He immediately reported, "Recently, we found traces of him at the Biden estate and the illegal auction. However, Mr. Lynette and Countess Dina, whom we observed, are frequently together." The soldier was slapped hard by the viscount, who couldn't control his temper. "One slap isn't enough," he shouted. "If you still want to live, bring that guy back quickly." As a soldier, the young man couldn't resist. Seeing that he was spared, he quickly lowered his head and answered clearly, "Yes, sir." The viscount then turned and left. At this moment, he seemed to have calmed down a bit. It appeared something had happened to Prince Lynette. "Is the rumor about Lynette's heart problem true? I suppose you're talking about heartbreak, right?" Perhaps the soldier had discovered some information. There have been such rumors in the Remandant royal family for a long time. The royal family's hearts are made of magic stones, just like a dragon's. The story came to an abrupt end. A new day arrived with blue skies and white clouds. On one side of a massive castle, near the forest, a carrier pigeon was descending. Someone greeted the little bird. It was Prince Lynette, who seemed to be sneaking around in a dark place while receiving a letter that read, "The left finger met the lioness. The flower has not been found." The content on the note was the same as before. "My uncle visited the queen again. On the same day, he had that nightmare. Dina discovered that day, and he received such a letter. What will happen next?" Prince Lynette truly couldn't predict his impulsive uncle. Furthermore, the sender of this note had some unclear intentions, and he himself was confused about many things. But in the end, he had to throw the letter into the fireplace to avoid being discovered. Watching the flickering flames, a fear gripped Prince Lynette's heart, a fear of what was to come, something he couldn't foresee, and it made his heart pound relentlessly. Looking back, I'm grateful a countess found me. My uncle wouldn't dare attack the countess's estate. Adelaide Grande, even before becoming a countess, she was already quite renowned, likely due to her education and appearance. Her mother passed away when she was still a child, and Count Adina's father spiraled into despair, neglecting all his responsibilities. He was weak, unable to cope with the harsh realities. So from a young age, she had to shoulder all the responsibilities of the estate and eventually became the countess. Edina, refusing to follow in her father's footsteps, used adversity to become stronger than ever. From that moment on, the Edina family's territory and reputation rapidly improved, and now she possesses both power and wealth. And when I met her, I found she wasn't as villainous as the rumors suggested. In fact, Prince Lynette held a different perspective on Countess Edina. Suddenly, a knock echoed through the room, followed by an announcement. "Your Highness, Edward wishes to see you." I urged them to let him in, but the prince replied, "No, I'll go later." Edward, the red-haired messenger, Edward, delivered the letter to the count, who sat in his study surrounded by a mountain of documents. Hearing the noise, he immediately rose to greet him. "Your Highness, you've arrived." Lynette changed into formal attire before entering the study. Edward got straight to the point. "I wanted to discuss the contract you signed with Countess Edina. There's nothing majorly wrong with it, but I disagree with one clause. Could you take a look and help me reach an agreement?" Edward muttered, observing the prince's expression. The content of Edward's concerns was neatly written in black ink, awaiting only the prince's signature. Lynette carefully read through the agreement. "Why did you end up working for Countess Edina?" Edward asked, his tone indifferent. "For the money, of course. The Countess usually pays well, plus there's overtime and bonuses." Just as they spoke, Edina appeared at the library door. Seeing her there at this hour, Edward inquired, "Countess, you're here already?" Edina sighed, rubbing her head. "There were some matters to sort out, so I came as well." Whatever needed resolving seemed to have been plaguing the Countess since last night, leaving her dizzy and unsteady on her feet. Just then, two young men nearby rushed to her aid, one supporting her shoulder, the other her waist, their movements remarkably coordinated. Edina was visibly surprised and touched by their attentiveness. She could still feel the lingering sensation of Prince Lynette's embrace. He had been considerate, holding her close, almost hesitantly, only tightening his grip when she truly stumbled. She, in turn, had gradually pulled away. To dispel any awkwardness or discomfort, Edina simply smiled and said, "Oh, it's nothing. Thank you." Edward, having been with the Countess for a long time, knew her tendencies. He immediately cautioned her, his tone serious. This happened on the stairs as well. Seeing his concerned reprimand, she simply replied, "I'll be more careful." However, their close interaction hadn't gone unnoticed by Prince Lynette. Even the viscount, who had taken advantage of the situation to steady the Countess by her waist, paled in comparison to this level of intimacy. He also took particular note of Edward's expression. Is that the face of someone working for money? Perhaps he's just a laid-back fellow. Perhaps Prince Lynette was once again lost in his own thoughts. But why do I feel a sense of unease? The meeting between Countess Edina and Prince Lynette had sent ripples through the auction house. Just how wealthy is the Edina family? The illegal auction had been completely shut down after its exposure. That was everything that had transpired in the past few days. All the information was printed on the newspaper she held, now nearly crumpled in her hand. Still dissatisfied with the content, Countess Edina sighed and handed the paper back to the servant. "That pesky reporter, Kendo. Kendo is a reporter for the Bowden Gazette, and she's practically attached to my hip. I knew that when I went to meet Duke Biden, she would be watching me like a hawk." It turns out Countess Edina has always been aware of what the Count knows about Anna. What was with those insincere pleasantries? Even the Count could see through them. The maid, caught off guard, could only offer a thin smile before changing the subject. "Oh, by the way, do you have any plans for today?" Seeing Edina's mood shift at the mention of this, she became animated and cheerful. "The royal party is coming up, so I thought I'd do some shopping." Just then, Countess Edina's carriage stopped in front of a shop called La Marie. It was one of the most prestigious dress shops in the Bowden capital, perpetually full, serving only a few clients at a time. Today was Edina's reserved day for shopping at this establishment. Even for a single dress, Edina was accustomed to observation and contemplation first. She glanced to either side and immediately recognized a familiar sight. Nobles without appointments would queue up like this, waiting for those with reservations to finish their selections before choosing their own. That carriage was the heroine's family's carriage. Edina recognized it instantly from the details and crest. After a short wait, a member of the shop staff came out to assist her. The girl was as gentle and refined as the shop's designs. "Countess, it must be cold out here." Indeed, the young women sitting inside murmured amongst themselves at the words Count and Countess. Someone immediately guessed her identity. Could it be Countess Edina? Most likely. I've heard so much about her. Seeing herself being discussed in this way, Edina tried to maintain a haughty air, holding her head high as she strode forward. Of course, her actions caught them completely off guard, leaving them speechless. Then someone stepped forward and asked, "Are you Countess Edina?" It was Lady Lyle, and she seemed displeased to see the Countess there. Edina didn't shy away either, stepping forward to greet her. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Lady Lyle." However, Edina was also curious why she was addressed in such a manner. "I read an article about you recently. It seems the Countess has been very actively involved in investigating those illegal auctions, hasn't she?" Lady Lao was quite forthright, but Edina was a woman who knew how to navigate society. She never revealed her full hand, so she simply smiled gently and replied, "Oh, those are just silly rumors." The more Lady Lyle saw Edina's calm expression, the more irritated she became. She seemed to relish it. "I hear the Countess has rented out this shop for the day. Because of you, everyone else is waiting in line." Edina was taken aback. She couldn't believe she was being blamed, even though she had done everything correctly, making a reservation and waiting like everyone else. "Oh, Lady Lyle, this shop typically only serves one client per day. In that case, it's actually those without appointments who are inconveniencing me." Lady Lyle clearly hadn't considered this and quickly became flustered, unable to speak, and had to wait for her maid to rescue her. However, the maid made a small gesture, glancing at Edina. Of course, Edina didn't miss this detail and immediately thought, "Is she afraid of me?" After that, she paid them no further mind, turning instead to the person who had greeted her, Jane, to inquire about the types of fabrics prepared for her today and how many outfits could be shown. Jane briefly informed them, perhaps accustomed to this process, that there would be approximately 20 outfits, the designs for which will be finalized shortly and then brought to the mansion for her fitting. "Oh, by the way, how many dresses do clients usually try on here?" "Around 32. Lady Lyle, who had come today looking to cause trouble for Edina, found herself relegated to a corner. Edina, with a grand gesture, declared, "Well then, allow me to cover the cost of those dresses. Consider it a gift to the lovely young ladies here." Lady Lyle was taken aback by a few words from Edina, who then approached her. "Are you satisfied with this?" she purred. "What?" Lyle began. "What do you mean?" Lady Lyle stammered, speechless. Just then, Edina's maid approached. "Countess," she said, "what's going on? Why didn't you come inside? Why are you so late?" Edina asked. The maid quickly explained that a carriage had caused a traffic jam, and she'd been held up. It was clear that Edina had orchestrated the entire scene. Lady Lyle's maid instantly became extremely panicked. Her next move was to hide behind Lady Lyle, as if dodging someone, but everyone who needed to see had already seen. Edina's maid also looked displeased. "Why is she here?" Edina murmured. "Do these two know each other?" Her maid, Anna, replied, "We're from the same neighborhood. Back then, my family had an orchard, and she was always sneaking in to steal fruit. I used to give her a good thrashing every day." "I see," Edina said thoughtfully. "But Anna, she keeps staring at me." The maid bristled at the perceived disrespect towards her mistress. "Anna," Edina whispered, "I find that maid utterly lacking in manners. Don't you agree?" Anna, incensed that her mistress was being rudely stared at, seethed with indignation. The maid's anxiety spiked. Anna immediately stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said to Lady Lyle. As a childhood friend of Sophia, she gestured to Lyle's maid. "Might I have a quick word with her?" Lady Lyle, of course, didn't mind in the slightest. Of course, she said brightly. Old friends reunited must have so much to catch up on. "Sophia, go ahead and chat." Naturally, her mistress's permission drained the color from Sophia's face. As Anna pulled her away, Sophia could only turn to Lady Lyle with a desperate plea in her eyes. "Save me, my lady." Edina, having witnessed the scene, could only chuckle, unsure how else to react. A series of outfits, ranging from casual wear to evening gowns, were being displayed. All of this was for Edina. They were helping her try on clothes. Edina thought with amusement. After all, Lyle is a righteous girl. A bit arrogant, but not malicious at all. Meanwhile, Lynette, lost in thought, imagined their wedding ceremony. Edina, observing this, smiled with satisfaction. She had to admit, they truly were a beautiful couple. Leaving the shop, Edina and Edward walked towards her estate. Both of them looked incredibly distinguished. The elegant pair strolled along. Even the large umbrella they carried couldn't prevent Edina from noticing something peculiar. A girl in the distance was watching them intently and surreptitiously. Edina and Edward entered a roadside cafe. 2 steaming cups of coffee were placed before them. Edina waited a moment for her coffee to cool before slowly lifting it to her lips. Though she tried not to pay attention, the girl's persistent gaze caught her notice. Why is she back again? She wondered. Indeed, the girl had taken a seat at another table, her eyes fixed on Edina. Edward, of course, noticed as well. "Isn't that Lady Lyle?" he asked, perplexed. "I wonder why she keeps doing that." Edina placed a hand to her face, ostensibly cupping her chin, while also seeming to block Lyle's line of sight. With a sigh, she said, "Yes, she's been following me around lately. Could it be that she's fallen for me? Oh, is my coolness truly that captivating?" Edward looked as if he might object, but instead, he simply chuckled and played along. "Indeed," he agreed. Emboldened, Edina grew more brazen in her teasing. "Really? Have you fallen for me this time?" she asked. Without missing a beat, Edward replied, "Yes, because the Countess pays me so handsomely. Even royal officials don't receive such a high salary." Edina, not the least bit embarrassed, laughed heartily. "I think so too," she declared. Lyle, seated at the other table, watched the two of them, her displeasure evident as she observed their jovial conversation. The three remained there for a considerable time, until Edina and Edward decided to leave. As Edina glanced towards the bottom of the stairs, she suddenly noticed something. Jeffers stood there, facing another young woman who looked rather haughty. A clear anxiety played across Jeffers' face as she carefully observed the situation, making her wonder what would happen if the girl were to be harassed. Just as she thought this, Edina immediately headed towards the scene, leaving Edward no choice but to helplessly call after the Countess, though his choice of words was indeed peculiar. As they drew closer, they finally realized what was happening. A handkerchief slowly drifted down, touching the floor. The haughty young woman spoke provocatively. "Miss Jeffers, could you pick up my handkerchief?" Jeffers' face became even more anxious, but she still couldn't say anything. Her hands clenched tightly as if any more pressure would draw blood. Despite being incredibly angry, Jeffers still held back, intending to bend down and pick up the handkerchief, but a movement was much faster than hers, stepping onto the handkerchief in one swift motion. This startled Jeffers. She probably didn't expect anyone to intervene at this time, and it was the person she had been staring at all along. Countess Edina, with a teasing smile, said to the haughty young woman, "Oh dear, I'm terribly sorry." The young woman was naturally furious that someone had interfered in her affairs, and she shouted, "Countess, what on earth are you doing? How rude." Edina didn't hesitate to retort immediately. "Rude? Who told you to drop your handkerchief in my place of business? Isn't that rude of you? Didn't your family teach you to pick up your own things when you drop them?" The young woman trembled all over from being scolded by Countess Edina, almost on the verge of tears. Edina's expression suddenly became very serious, full of intimidation and hostility, and she continued, "So, miss, do you have anything else to say?" The young woman was at a loss for words, so she couldn't say anything. Edina didn't mind seeing this. She turned to Jeffers and said, "Miss Jeffers, I have something to discuss with you. Shall we step outside?" Jeffers immediately and firmly lowered her head in acceptance. She had long wanted to leave this place. Jeffers went out with Edina, and when they arrived, everyone focused their attention on them. The reason being that Jeffers had been crying uncontrollably for a while, and Edina was looking at her acrimoniously. This only made Jeffers more afraid, causing her to cry even louder. Finally, Edina sighed and asked Edward for a handkerchief, but Edward disagreed, shaking his head vigorously. "My handkerchief is specifically reserved for the Countess." Edina, seeing Edward like that, said, "What are you talking about? I didn't bring a handkerchief either. Give it to me." But Edward was still stubborn, not liking this. Jeffers, who was crying, had to stop to listen to the two argue. Then she had to stop crying and offered her own handkerchief. "It's all right, you don't need to. I have a handkerchief." Jeffers wiped the remaining tears from the corners of her eyes with the handkerchief and said, "Thank you for your help, Countess." Edina told her sternly, "If you don't want to be bullied, you should learn to do this." Jeffers replied weakly, I can't do it like the Countess." Edina certainly didn't agree with Jeffers continuing to be so weak. She rebuked, "You represent the face of your family. Imagine, she carries the burden of the Jip family and its people on her shoulders, so she can't just lower her head in front of others." Hearing this, Jip's eyes widened in surprise. She had never thought about this before. Edina continued, "Where I'm from, there's a saying, the strongest don't necessarily survive, but those who survive are definitely strong." Jeffers, hearing Edina say this, showed obvious sadness on her face and didn't reply. Edina didn't wait for Jeffers' reply. She immediately turned and left. Edina couldn't help but laugh after she turned and left. "I'm just too cool," the evil villainess giving advice to the heroine. But her smugness was immediately interrupted by Edward, who said while stroking his chin, "If that's where the Countess used to live, wouldn't that be the Diner's land? Do they really say that there?" Edina started to feel uneasy, softly murmuring, "Probably," while Edward still couldn't understand where that saying came from. Later, Edina returned to her estate where they soon encountered Prince Lynette. He made a proposition. I will be going to the kingdom of Berto. Prince Lynette's proposal left one of the diners utterly astonished, so much so that she forgot about the meat she had just cut. If it's the kingdom of Berto, isn't that the country where a diner sold the prince's heart? The diner thought to herself, instantly feeling uneasy. She quickly forced a smile and asked in the calmest voice she could manage, "Has something happened in the kingdom of Berto?" Prince Lynette elegantly wiped his mouth and replied, "I'm going there to meet someone. If that's the case, do you need me to accompany you?" Before she could finish, Edina was interrupted by Lynette. "No need," Lynette said firmly. "I don't need your help." Lynette's attitude made Edina even more anxious. Could this be related to that heart? The atmosphere at the dining table suddenly froze, falling into silence. It felt as if, at that moment, even a pin dropping to the floor could be heard. Finally, Prince Lynette was the first to break the silence. He said, "I'm sick, so I have to go there." Edina replied, "Everyone in this empire knows that the prince has a special constitution." Lynette was surprised to hear her say this, and didn't say anything more for a moment. Although no one knew about the royal heart yet, everyone knew that Lynette's blood was poisonous, often thought to be a blood curse. Leonard's eyes looked sorrowful. He repeated, "Oh, so that's how it is." Then, immediately regaining his usual composure, he said, "Because there is someone in the kingdom of Berto who can help me treat my special constitution." He wiped his mouth and continued, "We'll go there and return next year. It's enough for me to stay at the estate until then." Hearing Lynette's proposal, Edina could only remain silent, not knowing what to say. She had no reason to refuse him. That night, in a deserted place, Edina stealthily went to that location and arranged to meet with someone. A masked person secretly handed her a bag. Holding the bag in her hand, Edina thought to herself, "Before Lynette leaves, complete plan B. Create an artificial heart with 100 gems." That night, Edina and Edward walked together on the path leading into the deep forest, where everything was shrouded in darkness. Edina had to carry a lamp to light the way. The lamp, originally in the trees, was suddenly placed on the ground. It seemed the two had arrived. Standing before them was a person with long green hair and a face full of freckles. She asked the ingredients. Edina handed the bag from earlier to the person and said, "Here, mage, let's begin." As she spoke, the mage immediately drew a magic circle on the ground. Only now did Edward finally have the chance to ask Edina, "Why on earth do you need an artificial heart?" Edina remained silent at these words. She truly couldn't reveal this secret, not even to Edward. Even so, her attitude seemed like a reproach. "Are you still keeping secrets from me?" This hurt. Edina could only feel helpless, her heart filled with resentment. How could she say that she had already sold the royal heart? She looked at the magic circle with the gems placed in the center and asked the mage, "Is everything all right?" The mage said, "I can't be certain it will work. This is a spell that even its creator has never used. Creating an artificial heart is a groundbreaking attempt, something no one has tried before, even though it was thought up by a diner." In the original work, after a while, the mage stood up and said, "All right." She placed her hand on the ground where she had just drawn the magic circle and said, "Now we just need to infuse it with magic power." As the young mage's magic power flowed into the circle, each stroke began to glow brighter, encircling the precious gems at the center. In the pitch-black night sky, a bolt of lightning crackled. This seemed to be the effect caused by the greatest magic power the mage had created. The gems flew out, partially burned black. The mage said, "It seems to have failed." Edina immediately inquired, "What about the mage team?" The mage replied, "The magical energy was too compressed. It exploded." Hearing this, Edina, truly despairing, clutched her head and lamented, "Damn it, all my money went into those stones." "So what?" "No, my money, every drop of my blood." Edina's scream echoed through the mountains that night. Anyone passing through the forest that day would surely have been frightened to death. Though painful, the next day still arrived. The following morning, at Edina's estate, Edina still couldn't shake her remorse. Utterly dejected, she covered her face with her hands, moaning incessantly, "My money, my money." Even Edward felt a pang of sympathy seeing her anguish, his eyes welling up as he sighed. Edina buried her face directly in the table. It was the butler who broke the stalemate. He entered, announcing Countess. Of course, Edina wouldn't display such vulnerability to the butler. She immediately resumed her usual stern demeanor. "Ah, butler, what is it?" Edward, who had witnessed the entire scene, couldn't help but marvel at how quickly the situation had changed. The butler said, "I heard you were preparing the year-end party for Prince Lynette. Is that correct?" Edina promptly replied, "Yes." She instructed the butler, "Please check the reservation schedule and clear the reception area on the 3rd floor for me." The butler immediately bowed, respectfully responding, "Yes, I understand." The year-end royal banquet would be held earlier than usual this year. This was also where the protagonists, Lyle and Lynette, would meet for the first time. The moment in the novel was finally approaching, meaning her own demise wasn't far off. At this thought, Edina buried her face in the table once more, her heart even heavier. The artificial heart failed, and my money is gone. When will I ever gather 100 magic stones? If things have come to this, then I have no choice. Edina lifted her head, her gaze resolute, though tears still shimmered in her eyes. I will focus on Plan A, which is to help the Allot Kingdom win this war. At that moment, in Prince Lynette's room, he lay quietly in bed. His mind was now filled with the cruel words of the past. "Cursed bloodline, that's you." Then, Countess Edina's words, "Everyone in the Empire knows about your Highness's special constitution, especially." He seemed to be suffocating under the weight of various distracting thoughts. He simply closed his eyes. The flower petals he had picked from the garden a few days ago still rested on the table, the symbolic flower of the Edina family. The next morning, at the Count's castle, a stranger appeared in the prince's room, taking his measurements for clothes. Just as the measuring was still underway, the door creaked open. The prince instinctively turned around. It was Countess Edina. She entered gracefully, looking up at the prince with a smile on her face. The stranger, who was preparing the prince's attire, immediately bowed upon seeing Countess Edina enter. He introduced himself. "I am Elder Hope from the Orbit Shop." Orbit Shop, that was the most famous menswear shop in the capital of Bodio. In her memory, Lynette attended the annual royal banquet in a knight's uniform, not formal attire. Countess Edina said, "Mr. Hope, please make the most beautiful suit for His Highness. Even if he leaves this mansion next year, I want him to be impeccable during this time. It must be so. If he intends to kill me, he might reconsider get a lighter sentence, right?" Deep down, she was excited and thrilled, imagining a future where she wouldn't die. After all, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Another knock echoed, and a maid entered, approaching Countess Edina. "Countess," she said, "did you give Ambrose a brooch to deliver?" Ambrose was the most famous jeweler in the capital. "The last time I came to commission a very special lapel pin for the prince." The servant explained that Ambrose only agreed to design for high-ranking families. So, before even beginning the designs for the competition, she had already switched over to designing for Marquis Gray. Edina couldn't help but be further astonished. "How dare he!" she exclaimed. The attendant behind Prince Lynette flinched at the fury in Edina's voice. "He cultivates a relationship with my designers, only to cast them aside for others. Worse, to only accept commissions from marquises or higher nobility. If that's the case, then why did he agree to my request in the first place?" The maid thought perhaps it was because the Count was engaged to Marchioness Gray, so he assumed.